The Lakers are officially heading into training camp, and surprisingly, no trades have gone down yet. And you know what? That's actually not a bad thing. We've been talking about trades all off-season, and yeah, of course, it would be nice to see some fresh blood come in, especially guys who can make an immediate impact. But there's something to be said for patience. Evaluating what you have before making big changes, that's just smart basketball management. You go into the season, watch how things play out, and let the true weaknesses naturally rise to the surface. Right now, one thing is already clear. This team needs perimeter defense and athleticism. The Lakers need players who can guard positions 1 through 3, guys who can defend the point of attack, switch on wings, and not get torched every other possession. You want two-way contributors, players who can do a bit of everything on both sides of the ball. But here's where it gets interesting. Do you go big and swing for a name like Andrew Wiggins? Or do you look for those under-the-radar, system-fit players like Matisse Thybulle or Haywood Highsmith? Because the truth is, you could potentially land both Thybulle and Highsmith for less than what it would cost to get Wiggins alone. And that's the dilemma. Wiggins brings a lot to the table. He can defend multiple positions. He can create his own shot. He's got playoff experience. And he's a guy who can go get you 20 on any given night. But the real question is, would he even have the opportunity to do all that in this Lakers system? You've already got guys like Rui Hachimura who are being underutilized despite having some of those same skills. Rui is one of the best mid-range shooters in the league, but how often do we actually see him being put in positions to exploit that? So if you bring in Wiggins, are you really maximizing his skill set, or are you just paying top dollar for someone who ends up being another catch-and-shoot 3-and-D player? And if that's the case, why not go for cheaper, more specialized options that slide into those roles naturally? Matisse Thybulle might not give you 20 points a night, but he can absolutely lock down opposing guards and wings, and that's something the Lakers desperately need. Same goes for Haywood Highsmith. These guys may not be flashy, but they know their role and can execute it. Now, of course, another area of concern is the backup center spot. On paper, it seems like something the Lakers need to address. But what if Jackson Hayes actually takes that next step this season? What if he builds on what he showed as a starter and becomes a reliable piece off the bench? If that happens, then maybe you don't need to chase another big man. And speaking of bench production, that was another glaring issue last season. The Lakers were dead last in bench scoring. That's not going to cut it in a loaded Western Conference. But if you slide someone like Rui into a six-man role, and then you have a guy like Jake LaRavia stepping up, things could look a lot different. LaRavia is an interesting piece. He's shown flashes of being a legitimate two-way player, a guy who can defend at a high level and also score at all 3 levels. He was rated as a B-plus defender last season, which isn't elite, but it's solid. And if he's taken a leap during the offseason, he could end up being a difference maker. You also look at someone like Jared Vanderbilt. What if he rediscovers his defensive form from the 2023 season and starts hitting the 3-ball with consistency? That changes the equation entirely, because now you're looking at internal development instead of external acquisitions. And that's the key point here. You don't want to make a panic trade. You want to give it 20 to 25 games, let the season breathe a little bit, and see what problems actually need solving. Because the worst-case scenario is that you trade for someone like Wiggins, and it ends up stunting the growth of guys like LaRavia or Rui, or even someone like Dalton Connect, who's another young piece that could end up surprising people. It's not just about talent. It's about opportunity, role, and fit within the system. At that point, if someone like LaRavia really shows he can hold his own, you're not trading for Wiggins because you're desperate. You're doing it because you want to add experience and depth, not because your season depends on it. And that's a much better negotiating position to be in. It flips the script. Instead of teams knowing the Lakers are desperate and jacking up the price, they now have to deal with a front office that has leverage. That's when you get good deals. That's when you can steal a player for less than market value. And let's not forget, Rob Pelinka has been steadily improving in how he manages this team. Earlier in his tenure, he was taking deals way too fast, getting fleeced, and reacting instead of planning. But over time, he's shown more patience. He's shown an ability to step back, let things unfold, and wait for the right opportunity. That kind of evolution matters. It's why the Lakers were able to swing some excellent deals at the last trade deadline, and it's why they might be in a position to do it again, but only if the right opportunity comes along. It's not about being afraid to overpay. Sometimes an overpay is fine if it makes sense. Like the hypothetical deal from Mark Williams. Yeah, maybe it costs a bit more than you'd like, but if it solves a real problem and fills a legitimate need, it's justified. But there's no justification for overpaying for a guy like Wiggins if, in reality, your internal options are doing just fine. And what if all Wiggins does is create a logjam at a position you're already solid at? What if he ends up being more of a luxury than a necessity? You've also got to think about the big picture. Even if you do pull off a deal, what are the long-term implications? Are you giving up young assets for a short-term fix? Because remember, this isn't just about this season. It's about building a roster that can compete now and still have flexibility for future moves. The Lakers are in a really good position with their assets, their expiring contracts, and a roster that's full of upside. So why throw that all away just to make a move for the sake of making a move? That's why the front office is being cautious. You got guys like Gabe Vincent who might end up being trade bait later in the season if things don't pan out. Maybe you flip him for another shooter, or maybe you use him in a package to go get a scoring punch off the bench. There are so many possibilities, and that's the point. You don't lock yourself into a direction this early. You wait, you watch, and you let the season tell you what you need. Because who knows? Maybe LaRavia becomes that real deal, a guy who gives you solid defense, reliable scoring, and a high IQ on the floor. Maybe Vanderbilt evolves into that perfect glue guy who does all the dirty work and hits just enough shots to stay on the floor in big moments. And maybe Rue thrives in a sixth-man role, giving you a consistent offensive punch off the bench. Suddenly, your biggest problems start solving themselves. And that's the mindset Rob Pelinka seems to be taking into this season. He's made it clear in interviews. He wants to give this group time. He talked about giving it 20 to 25 games before really deciding what the team needs. And yeah, we've heard this before. It's almost tradition at this point. Every offseason, there's talk about patience, about evaluation, and then everyone waits to see if the front office actually follows through. But when you look back, aside from one season, Pelinka has made a trade every single year since he took over. The guy doesn't just sit on his hands. If there's a deal to be made, and it makes sense, he's going to pull the trigger. Still, what's different now is that he's not just making trades for the sake of action. Earlier in his tenure, Pelinka was too reactive. You could see it in the moves, taking the first deal that came across the table, making trades that didn't have long-term logic, just trying to plug holes quickly. But now, he's more methodical. He's shown a willingness to let things play out, to hold firm, to avoid getting fleeced. That shift in approach is one of the reasons the Lakers have managed to build a deeper, more flexible roster without giving up their few remaining assets too quickly. And look, it's easy to want immediate answers. Fans want action. Everyone's hungry for improvement, especially in a Western Conference that's gotten even tougher. But there's real value in seeing what you already have. Training camp and the early stretch of the regular season are crucial. This is the time when players establish roles. Coaches identify strengths and weaknesses, and chemistry starts to build. That's why this particular training camp feels so important, especially for guys like Jake LaRavia, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Maxwell Lewis, and even some of the veterans trying to prove they belong in the rotation. Because let's be honest, this team isn't set in stone. Half of this roster could be gone next season. Most of them are on expiring deals or short-term contracts. So, what we're really watching is the foundation of the next phase in the Lakers' evolution. And speaking of foundation, this year is massive for Luka Doncic, not just in terms of personal growth, but in what this team is going to look like moving forward. Luka is the franchise. That's obvious. But this season, with a full training camp, a clearer vision, and more defined roles around him, it's about setting the tone for what the next few years will be. Stars may come and go. Role players will definitely rotate in and out. But everything is going to orbit around Luka. And unless you somehow land a generational player like Nikola Jokic or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, no one else is knocking Luka out of that centerpiece role. That's why building the right type of team around him is so critical. You need players who complement his game, who defend, who hit open shots, who don't need the ball in their hands to be effective, because Luka is going to have the ball. Period. That brings us back to the idea of trades and additions. Even if a trade does come later in the year, it needs to be one that fits the long-term picture, not just a quick fix for a rough patch in January. And remember, there are always surprise names that pop up. Every single season, players become available that no one was expecting. Teams hit panic mode, they underperform, they shift directions. Some franchises realize they're not as competitive as they thought and decide to blow things up. That's when the Lakers have to be ready, because they've got the expiring contracts. They got a few picks. They've got enough flexibility to make a deal if it feels right. Think about teams like Portland. Are they really going to let someone like Matisse Thybulle walk for nothing? Probably not. And when the trade deadline creeps closer, those conversations heat up. That's when a guy like Thybulle becomes gettable, cheap, low risk, but potentially high reward. Same with someone like Haywood Highsmith. You're not targeting these guys right now because the market's closed off and most teams are heading into the season with the rosters they built in the summer. But give a couple of months. Let the standings shake out. Let injuries, underperformance, and locker room drama create pressure. That's when value opens up. It's also why it makes sense to keep your ears open and your options flexible. Even if you're not actively shopping players right now, you still want to be ready. You still want to be working the phones, checking in with other front offices, just staying engaged. Because when a real opportunity comes, it won't wait. The Lakers aren't in a position where they have to make a trade. And that's a powerful position to be in. It means you can be selective. You can prioritize fit over flash. You can avoid desperation. And that's where patience pays off, because you may end up finding out that what you need isn't as dramatic as you thought. Maybe you don't need a blockbuster trade. Maybe what you need is to shift a couple pieces, upgrade one specific skill set, like shooting or bench scoring. Maybe you flip Gabe Vincent for someone who can fill that role better. Or you move a depth piece to get someone who can play small ball 5 in certain lineups. It doesn't always have to be the big swing. Sometimes it's the small, strategic moves that make the biggest difference come playoff time. And again, that's assuming you even need to make a move. This team might come out and surprise everybody. What if Rui takes another leap and becomes a consistent third scorer? What if Jared Vanderbilt turns into a legit 3-and-D weapon? What if Jake LaRavia looks like a real NBA starter? If even one or two of those things happen, that's massive for the Lakers. Not just for this season, but for the future. Because it means you've developed in-house talent. And that's the most cost-effective way to stay competitive year after year. Before we continue, we ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Lakers updates. Moving on, the NBA world is buzzing with whispers that could reshape the landscape of Los Angeles basketball. Sources close to the matter suggest that Kawhi Leonard, the enigmatic star currently with the Clippers, has reportedly accepted a proposal from none other than the Lakers. While nothing is official, the mere hint of Leonard switching sides has sent fans and analysts alike into a frenzy, imagining the seismic shift this would cause in the Western Conference. Leonard, known for his ice-cold demeanor on the court and meticulous approach off it, has long been the subject of trade speculation, but the idea of him joining the Lakers adds a whole new layer of intrigue. Los Angeles, a city already split by basketball allegiances, could see its narrative rewritten if this rumor holds any weight. Lakers supporters are already daydreaming about the pairing of Leonard with their existing stars, envisioning a team that could dominate the NBA for years to come. Meanwhile, Clippers faithful are left in stunned silence, grappling with the possibility of losing the player who has been a cornerstone of their ambitions. Industry insiders caution that Leonard's reported acceptance of the Lakers' offer may not be the final chapter. Contract negotiations, trade logistics, and league approval all stand between rumor and reality, making the situation fluid and unpredictable. Yet, even as a mere possibility, the news is enough to ignite debates across social media, sports talk shows, and fan forums. Analysts are already speculating on how the move could impact team chemistry, playoff matchups, and the balance of power in the NBA. One thing is certain: the streets of Los Angeles, from downtown to the beaches, are alive with speculation. A Leonard-Lakers partnership would not just be a roster change. It would be a statement, a signal that the Lakers are prepared to play a long game in pursuit of championship glory. For now, fans on both sides are holding their breath, waiting to see if this tantalizing rumor transforms into one of the most shocking trades in recent NBA history. The City of Angels may soon witness a basketball earthquake, and all eyes are on Kawhi Leonard. Stay informed exclusively about Los Angeles Lakers news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep receiving daily updates. Also, share your opinion on the news in the comments, as your contribution is crucial for the Lakers. Stay tuned for the next video.